Alrighty, sorry, most a little bit dry. What's up, everyone? Hope you guys are doing well. Today is October the 16th. It's a Thursday today. Hope you guys are doing well. You can see overall markets, a lot of volatility both ways. You can see kind of nice pushes right off the bat off our previous day highs, and then we end up rejecting off our another key levels, coming back down to fill the gap. And now you can see the markets are right back, really back towards our previous day highs currently in the pre-market. So a lot of volatility intraday to both ways, not really a clear direction, at least on the lower time frames, at least for the higher time frames, kind of building up these higher lows. Looks like we're about to continue back up and towards our previous day highs and potentially our news candle high of last week. But we'll talk about some of these names that we have coming into today. As for yesterday, nice kind of opening drive right off the bat. We ended up taking AMD towards the upside. Talked about this one here in the pre-market. Higher time frame break. If we can get back above our previous all-time highs key level, we did have also a downtrend break as well. So we end up having a super solid move on AMD. Really the only name that had a really significant push yesterday, up about 9%. As for the rest of the names, either small green or fairly flat. But we'll talk about some of the names that we're looking for coming into today. Before we do that, what's up, everyone? Hope you guys are doing well. I might make this a little bit shorter. My throat is pretty dry. But what's up, everyone? Hope you guys are doing well. Good morning, B Roots, Victor, Willie, Jeff, Joseph, Nantali, Vate, Monty. Good morning, Robert, Wayne, Andreas, Hannah. What's up, Charles, Mozzie, 50, Shelly, Martin, Captain, Sinna, Majid, Juan, One Up, Jen, Telmo, Robert, Hugo. What's up, everyone? Norwin, Miss Reggie, Hartik. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, hope you guys are doing well. Let's get right into the charts and see exactly what we're looking at coming into today. Let's go on to the major indices. First things first, let's go on to the hourly chart. So as you can see here, I'm not sure why my mouse isn't moving here as well. But yeah, coming into today here for the ES, as you can see, we're just building up these higher lows here. So we're building up these higher lows on the higher time frames. And now you can see we're just kind of making a new high, coming all the way back down, right? Still in a very clear trend ever since we had this pretty big drop here on Friday. It's actually pretty annoying. I'm not sure why my mouse, the sensitivity is so low. But as you can see here for the overall markets, we're building up these higher lows on the higher time frames. And at least for the lower time frames, we've had some nice pushes, but ultimately we've basically been just filling every single gap that we've had. So if you go into the lower time frames here, specifically on the major indices, you can see every single day we've had a gap in the markets. So either a gap up or a gap down, and every single day we've had some nice opportunities, but ultimately we filled the gap back towards the downside. So you can see on over the weekend, we ended up having this gap up, but then it filled it the next day, and then we had this gap fill reversal. Similar thing, we had a gap up yesterday, nice kind of gap and go towards the upside, ultimately rejected off a key pivot point, came all the way back down, came back down in towards your Tuesday's highs, and then we filled the gap back towards the downside. And then similar thing today, we're going to have another small gap up in the overall market. So at least coming into today here for the overall indices, what I have today for the ES, the key levels that we have marked out is going to be your previous day highs along with your previous day lows. And then we also have your Tuesday's highs marked out here as well. So for today, at least for the ES, what I like to see is primarily just this pullback down in towards your previous day close, your Tuesday's highs as well, just to kind of build these higher lows here on the higher time frames. Another possible scenario, kind of break above your previous day highs for continuation towards the upside, right? Consolidation also is in play for this pushback up and towards your previous day highs and above. But the primary scenario you'd be looking for now coming into this morning would be your retest of your Tuesday's highs, which is also your previous day close, and also this higher low here based off of the higher time frame. So this is going to be the key levels coming into today, primarily that pullback, as I mentioned, towards that Tuesday's highs. As for the downside, I would only be interested in the downside now if you could break underneath their Tuesday's highs, maintain underneath their Tuesday's highs, and potentially you can see this pullback all the way back down and towards that previous day lows, which is that 66.70. So this is what I have for the ES coming into market open. Of course, it could very much also well come up in towards your previous day highs, and also reject this key pivot level here as well. But these are the scenarios that we're going to have played out. Primarily, I just like the reaction that we have off of your Tuesday's high. So we're either going to be looking for scenario number one, or if we get underneath your Tuesday's highs, potentially we can see some more downside here on the overall market. If you look at the SPY chart, fairly similar thing. You can see every single time we've had a gap in the market, we just came down and filled the gap before having a nice move in the overall direction. So coming into today here for the for the SPY chart, key levels that we're going to have marked out, it's the exact same thing. It happens on all the major indices. We have your SPY, right? QQQ, ES, NQ. Currently, the levels that we're going to have marked out previous day highs on the SPY 670. We have your Tuesday's highs marked out here as well, along with your previous day lows 660. So coming to market open here, what I like to see, as I mentioned, is the reaction that we have off of your Tuesday's highs. If we can maintain above your Tuesday's highs, we can see this continue push towards the upside. Another possible scenario, longs above your previous day highs. You can see a potential move up and towards your all-time highs, which is your 673. If we're looking for some downside, primarily it's going to occur underneath your Tuesday's highs, which will be that 666. So Tuesday's highs is going to be very key. It's also your Monday's highs as well. Also key reaction from yesterday. So this is a very important level here. Tuesday's highs, you can also say it's your Monday's highs. So it's your 665 here on the SPY chart. And then on the ES, it's a very key level here as well. So these are the scenarios that I have played out coming into today and what we're going to be looking for on the major indices. Now let's go on to the QQQ chart. As you can see, the QQQ chart lagging a little bit behind, but now we're shaping up nicely here in the pre-market. We're gravitating closer to your previous day high. So for the NQ, the exact same thesis applies. So you can see higher lows are being built here on the hourly chart. As for the 15-minute time frame, the key levels that we're going to have marked out, Tuesday's highs, and we also have your previous day highs marked out here as well. So as you can see, coming into market open for the NQ, exact same game plan, either the bounce off of your Tuesday's highs for this continued push towards the upside. Another possible scenario here as well, break above your previous day highs, which is now going to be this 25,120. For this continued push back towards the upside here as well. So we have two scenarios, at least for the long side for the NQ. If we ultimately break underneath your Tuesday's highs, potentially we could see a reversal back down in towards that previous day lows, but that's only going to occur underneath your 24,960. So your 24,960 is going to be a very key level for the NQ coming into today. As for another possible scenario for the downside, kind of this pop and fade is also in play, but be a little bit more cautious of this pop and fade off of your previous day highs, just because if you can get above, really the next levels that I do have is really all the way back up and towards your all-time highs. As for the QQQ, key levels that we have marked out, fairly similar thing here. What we have is your previous day highs marked out, 607. And then we're going to also have marked out now Monday's highs along with Tuesday's highs. And then we're going to have your previous day lows marked out. So for the QQQ, exact same thesis here, right? If we can dip down in towards your Monday's highs, you could be looking for the potential bounce off this level for a continued push back towards the upside. Another possible scenario, right? Break above your previous day highs, 607 for this potential continued push back up and towards your all-time highs. As for some downside, as I mentioned, break underneath your Monday's highs for this push back towards the downside or potential kind of pop and fade. So right now you can see I'm laying out a bunch of scenarios just because the overall markets, there's not really a clear direction. Whenever we had that big drop here on Friday, you're going to have to be open to playing both sides in the market, and you can expect the markets to not have any clear trends intraday just because there's going to be a lot of volatility. You can see basically every single day we've had a nice move, but ultimately, right, it didn't last that long. You can see kind of drop right off the bat, and then we had this nice rally here on Tuesday, but ultimately dropped closer to end of day. Similar thing yesterday, nice push towards the upside, but ultimately end of day, right, we had that nice drop. And then we end up having a nice bounce. So you could see all the reactions that we have off these key levels. The markets are reacting fairly nicely, but don't have a clear bias, right? You want to be having, right, entries at key levels, right? Sell at key levels as well. If you want to hold trailers, right, hold a very small amount, just because most likely, at least on the major indices, we're not going to have any clear trends, or we're going to have clear trends intraday, but it's going to hit our key targets and potentially have major reversals just because we already have pretty big moves, right? These moves, that are happening intraday are very big moves compared to a couple weeks ago, just because we have a lot of volatility. And whenever we have a lot of volatility, what happens is we don't have any clear direction, but we have big moves. And whenever markets offer big moves like this, you definitely want to be taking profits. So in this case, right, these are scenarios that we have coming into today here on the major indices. Primarily, it's just going to be the reaction that we have off of your Mondays and Tuesdays highs. Let me grab some water here. My throat's actually really dry. And now I'm going to go into some of the tech names that we have coming into today. If you guys do have any tickers or any charts, you guys can also drop them in the chat as well. All right. Yeah, I might actually talk less here. My throat's really dry. But yeah, coming into today, let's go on to AMD is 608, not a key. 608 is a key level. It's just your previous kind of pivot point here. You can mark this out. I just opted to mark this out just because it's touching your previous day highs. But this is a very key level here, 608. For the SPY, we actually came up, gravitated up and towards our high from last week, which was our Thursday's highs. You can see this is exactly where we rejected off of. So the SPY is actually the main kind of ticker you should be keeping an eye out on. The Q's chart, I don't like as much, but it still looks really good here as well. SPY is a little bit more bullish, and that's why I end up tapping into your Thursday's lows. All right, let's first talk about AMD. I'll go over TSM later as well. This one does have earnings, and we also have a bunch of earnings coming into the next couple of weeks as well. But for AMD, so this was my main ticker that we're looking for yesterday, or one of the main watches. Potential kind of invalidation of the head and shoulders, break above this trend line here as well. I mentioned we could get a pretty big move back up and towards your 234 and potentially your all-time highs. So we end up having a really solid move on AMD yesterday. Now we're actually already hitting your all-time highs here in the pre-market. And we also hit it in the after hours as well. So coming into today here for AMD, the only level that matters here is your 240. So if you can break above your 240 coming into today, potentially you can see a nice kind of opening drive for a push up and towards your 244 and above. All right, so this is going to be the number one scenario. Another possible scenario is if it rejects off your all-time highs, you could still be looking for this higher low off your 234. I don't like this one as much just because it potentially, if it rejects off this level, it very much well could just continue lower. But the key levels that I have marked out is going to be this 240, the break above your 240 hold, which is now just going to be your previous all-time highs. So these are the main scenarios I have for AMD coming to today. Of course, I want to see scenario number one, break above your previous day highs, hold above that for continuation. As for AMD, it very much well could reject off this all-time highs level and come all the way back towards the downside. So be very cautious coming into today here for AMD. 240 is going to be key. It's very bullish compared to the overall market, so I do suspect some more upside just because it's back at all-time highs. It showed some lot of relative strength yesterday. Let's see if we can have continuation above your 240, but just keep in mind it could very much well reject and come all the way back down and towards that 234. So this is the level I have marked out coming into today here for AMD. As for Tesla, coming into market open, so this one kind of consolidating. The key levels that I have marked out is that 235, which in this case, it is your Monday's highs. So coming into today, this is the level that I'm going to have marked out. I'm also going to have marked out your previous day lows as well. So for Tesla, if we want to see some upside now, you can see we're kind of just consolidating coming into this week. If I was to mark out your Friday's range from last week, really this week, we haven't had a clear direction. And we've been kind of consolidating a little bit more. So for Tesla, what I'd like to see for some upside, break above your Monday's highs for a potential move up and towards your Friday's highs. Another possible scenario, just this bounce play all the way back down at your previous day lows for this continued push back towards the upside. If we're looking for some downside here, either the rejection off your Monday's highs, or if price got all the way back underneath your previous day lows, you could be looking for this continued push underneath your previous day lows for a move down and towards your Tuesday's lows. So this is what I have for Tesla. Not really watching this one as much until we can kind of break above this higher time frame key pivot point, which in this case is your Friday's highs. If I was to draw this out, I would say we're consolidating a little bit more now just based off the hourly chart until we can really break above your 444. I'm going to be a little bit more patient on this ticker just because we're kind of stuck inside this big range. So until we can break above this 444 and kind of invalidate this head and shoulders, I'm going to be a little bit more cautious on Tesla because once we can break back above that 444, I think we can have a bigger move in the overall markets. Now let's go on to Nvidia. As for Nvidia, this one kind of staying heavy compared to the overall indices. You can see so far kind of rejecting off of your previous day highs pivot point, and now we gravitated all the way back down in towards your previous day low. So for Nvidia, this one being affected, we had a couple other names, a couple other semiconductors with news, so that's why Nvidia kind of being beaten down just a little bit. But for Nvidia, the key levels that we have coming into today is just going to be your previous day highs along with your previous day lows, which is your 179. So if you want to see some longs, right, you could be looking for the bounce play off your previous day lows for this continued push towards the upside, continue push back down in towards your, this is your low that we created here on Tuesday, potential push down in towards your previous day lows and below. And then there's also, of course, that pop and fade that's in play that could reject off of your 185. So this is what I have for Nvidia coming into market open. Now let's go on to the next chart that we have, which is Apple. As you can see here on the higher time frames, Apple, as you can see, really just consolidating in between its Friday's range here as well. So for Apple, we end up having a nice kind of opening drive play towards the upside off of your previous day highs yesterday off this 249. We had this nice continuation up and towards your 251, but ultimately kind of rejected off this 251, and now we're just back inside of the range. So for Apple coming into today, let me just redo these labels. So this is basically your Monday's highs for Apple. There's really not too much to talk about. We're in a fairly tight range here. So for Apple, if you can hold above your Tuesday's highs along with your Monday's highs, potential continuation towards the upside. Another possible scenario here as well is the break above your previous day highs for continuation. As for Apple, I'm actually a little bit more neutral on this ticker. So keep in mind, if we break underneath your Monday's highs, potential continuation down in towards your previous day lows, or if we have that pop and fade off of your previous day highs, we can see a push right back down in towards your Monday's highs. So really not a clear kind of higher time frame thesis here on Apple, just consolidation really with inside of its Friday's range. Whenever consolidating with inside of its Friday's range, I'd be a little bit more cautious on this ticker. All right, let's go over a couple more here. As for Google, I really like Google. This one, as I mentioned, was a top watch coming to yesterday just based off the fact that we're above our Friday's highs. And now you can see this one's moving back nicely towards the upside. So you can see if we were to mark out our Friday's highs of last week, Google was really one of the only tickers that was above our Friday's highs. We ended up using this nicely. Even yesterday, nice trade above your previous day highs. And then you can see a nice kind of push towards the upside. Actually came back all the way down and retested our Tuesday's highs once again. And now we're having this nice continued push higher. So for Google, this one really looks like it's just going to end up pushing back up and towards your all-time highs. A possible scenario coming into today here is going to be that retest off of your previous day highs, 251. If you can retest off your 251, we can see this nice continued push up and towards your 256 and above. So keep that in mind here on Google coming into today. We're going to keep an eye out on that 251, as I mentioned, for that potential push up and towards your now it's going to be your all-time highs and above. Another possible scenario, kind of break above your pre-market highs for this push up and towards your all-time highs as well. So this is what we're going to have marked out on Google coming into market open. As for the rest of the tickers, Amazon, a lot more consolidation, not too much to talk about here. Meta, similar thing, a little bit more consolidation, and then Netflix, and then the other tickers, yeah, not too much is going on. So coming into market open today here, as I mentioned, the game plan is just going to be the reaction that we have off of your Monday's highs, specifically on the SPY chart. And also we're going to keep an eye out on your previous day highs as well here for the QQQ 607. So we're going to keep an eye on the reactions off these key levels. I'll talk about this a little bit more. Now I'm just going to go on to some other names here as well. So if you guys do have any tickers, you guys can drop them in the chat now and I'll go over them. Grab some water here. Yeah, hope you guys are doing well. Good morning, everyone. If you guys do have any tickers, you guys can now drop them in the chat. If you guys are enjoying this so far, I appreciate if you guys drop a like. If you guys haven't joined the daily watch list, that of course is in the description below as well. Alrighty, let's see. Yeah, the scenarios for Google is just going to be the retest off of your previous day highs. Hi Jack, would you say in such markets it's better to rather trade reversals than continuations unless it's a ticker driving news? Yeah, you could trade continuations, but just understand that they won't last that long, right? A continuation trade I would consider would be off of your previous day highs. If you're on the lower time frames, this is a really solid continuation trade. As you can see right here, off of your previous day highs for this nice continued push up and towards your 607, right? This is on a regular basis. This is about a 3 to 4 point move, which is a huge move on the QQQ. But if you're zooming out, right, the reason why we're having rejections at key levels and bounces at key levels of support as well is just based off Friday's price action. You can see if I was to mark this out, I would just draw this whole general area. And you can see until we can break above or below this range, we're going to have a lot more bounces, rejections at key levels. So just be very cautious, right? You just want to, if you're going to trade continuations, which you can, right, just sell at key levels. Even this one would be technically a continuation just because it's intraday bearish, but you're going to have to sell at key pivot points. So you're going to have to sell at key pivot points and be very cautious of the market, all right, bouncing at overall key levels, right? You're going to be prone to taking more reversal setups, right? Rejections off support, rejections off resistance, and bounces off key support levels. Just had that cold. It looks like you're getting started with scratchy throat. Yeah, I just came back from like a 2 week trip and I had like 5 hours of sleep every day for 2 weeks. So makes sense, but hopefully it doesn't get that bad. Okay, let's go on to a few other tickers here. Let's first start off on Palantir. So yeah, for Palantir coming into today, really just still consolidating with inside of its range. I like the move above your previous day highs. You kind of had this nice kind of opening drive play right off the bat, but ultimately we're just stuck inside this range. So if we're stuck inside the range, just be a little bit more cautious and don't expect too much continuation. But key levels really is just going to be your previous day highs. You also have your Monday's highs now here as well. So it's not your previous day highs, it's your Tuesday's highs. So for Palantir, right, break above your previous day, Tuesday's highs, potential move up and towards your previous day highs, or this bounce play all the way back down and towards your Monday's highs for this continuation high. OKLO finally had a little bit of a pullback, but still bullish here on the higher time frames. As for Oracle, this one's pushing up nicely here. So as you can see, Oracle, we're building up these higher lows. It's about to have a nice push towards the upside. You can see higher lows are being built. We have a key level of resistance here, which is your Monday's highs 310. If you can get that break above your Monday's highs along with their previous day highs, Oracle is going to have a nice push towards the upside. So let's actually just redo these levels, previous day highs. And now we're just going to mark this out as your Tuesday's highs. So coming into today, keep an eye out on Oracle for the break above 310, right? Potential flat top break forming here as well. So for Oracle, as I mentioned, break above your 310, we can see a nicer push towards the upside. So this is what we have coming into today. Keep an eye out on this ticker. This is going to be one of my main watches coming into today. As for a few other tickers that we have, AVGO, key levels that we have is going to be this Monday's highs 358. So 358 is going to be key here. If we can break above your 358, potential move towards the upside. Another possible scenario is going to be the bounce off now. It's going to be your previous day lows for this continued push back towards the upside here as well. So that's what I have for AVGO. This one, a lot of the semis pulled back yesterday, but they still look fairly good here on the higher time frames. See a few people else talking about Hood. Let me go into this one. So Hood's kind of consolidating, coming back down into a key level support, which is your 132. So for Hood here, you either like to see the bounce off this key level support 132 for a push back up and towards your all-time highs. Or now if it doesn't bounce off your previous day lows, potentially you can see a little bit of a bigger move towards the downside, which will be down in towards that 128. So keep that in mind here if you're trading Hood. Really, it's been staying heavy as the overall markets have been pushing higher. You can see Q's nice kind of bounce from your Friday's lows, whereas Hood really not doing too much. So I'll be a little bit more cautious for hood long until we can have a strong bounce off that previous day lows, or if now we can break back above your previous all-time highs, or now it's just going to be your previous day highs. Okay, let me go on to a couple more tickers here as well. All right, so for SoFi, key levels that we have coming to today, you can see kind of drove up in towards our October 7th highs, and a little bit of reaction off this level and just came right back towards the downside. So coming into today here for SoFi, what we like to see now is just the reaction that we have off of your Monday's highs, which is your 2740, or the reaction that we have off of your 2880. So for SoFi, we're a couple scenarios that I have played out coming into today. Number one, right, it just consolidates because we're inside of its range. It has a move later into the session. Another possible scenario, kind of break above your previous day highs, and then potentially either the bounce off of your Monday's highs, 2740. As for some downside, it very much well could come up, reject off this level, so be a little bit cautious of that. Or if we get underneath your 2740, you could see a little bit more push towards the downside. Let's go on to TSM here. It actually had earnings here in the pre-market, and we'll also take a look at some of these semiconductors here. So for TSM, as you can see, we had some earnings here in the pre-market. We're actually above your all-time highs here now as well. So we talked about this one kind of gapping up on Tuesday. Now we came all the way back down in towards your previous day highs, and now currently we're gapping up here once again with earnings. So coming into today here for TSM, what I'm going to have marked out is this 307, and then we also have marked out your previous day lows here as well. So coming into today, really the main level that I have marked out is going to be this 307. So for TSM, right, we could potentially pull back all the way down in towards this 307. And this is going to be the higher low, previous day highs as well for this continued push towards the upside. Another possible scenario is going to be now the break above your pre-market highs, which is also now your earnings highs for this continuation higher. So there's two scenarios that you'd be looking for on TSM. I like that pullback, right? The break above your pre-market highs, you have to be very cautious just because it has earnings. IV is going to be super high. You really don't want to be buying right closer to high of day when the IV is high, because any sort of pullback, you're going to have a significant pullback, and the contracts are definitely going to get crushed. So keep that in mind. I personally like that pullback down in towards that previous day highs. As for some shorts, it very much well could reject off this pre-market high and come all the way back down in towards your previous day high. So for TSM, levels that you're just going to have marked out today, your earnings high, which is your 312.98, and we're going to have your previous all-time highs marked out 307 here on TSM. And then for MU actually ended up having a nice push towards the upside. You can see breaking above here now as well. So for MU, higher time frame key levels that we have marked out is just your 197, and we can also have this level marked out here as well, which is going to be this 200 key psych. So as you can see here for MU coming into today, we're currently breaking above your all-time highs here in the pre-market. So for MU, what I like to see now is it really maintain above your 197. If you can maintain above your previous all-time highs, you can see push back up and towards your pre-market highs and potentially your 200 key psych level here on the higher time frames. And then for Intel, let's just go over another semiconductor. For Intel, key levels that we have marked out, really not doing too much. It's going to be your Tuesday's highs, and we're going to also have your 38 key psych level here as well. So for Intel, you just like to see it really maintain above your Tuesday's highs for this continued push back up and towards your 38 here and above. Okay, I'm just gonna get I'm gonna go over my top watches coming into today, and I'm actually just gonna call it early. So for today here, on the spine cues, right, the game plan is basically still intact. We don't have any red folder news just because we do have that government shutdown. Let me actually just pull up the Forex factor here as well. But as you can see here, if we scroll down, right, today is October the 16th, right, we're supposed to have core PPI numbers come out, but with the government shutdown, it's now just moved to the next week. And then we also have earnings next week as well on a bunch of these tickers. So next week, we're going to have this week, we have a lot of volatility just based off of last week's price action from Friday. And then next week, it's going to be a really big week as well, just because we have a lot of earnings reporting and a lot of these major red folder news events as well. So at least coming to the rest of the week, right, be cautious of kind of these pops and reversals, right, rejections at key levels. Don't expect like a clear trend to one way, right? Expect, as I mentioned, right, rejections at key levels, bounces, and then, right, eventually currently, right, still building up these higher lows. So as I mentioned, what I'd really like to see now on SPY is kind of this push, right, maintain above that Tuesday's highs for the push up and towards your previous day highs and above. So that's what we have coming into today. Keep an eye out on your previous day highs along with your Tuesday's highs here on SPY. I am leaning more towards the upside as long as we can maintain above your Tuesday's highs. So I'm going to have a bullish stance here on the overall markets if you can maintain above that Tuesday's highs, which is your 666. As for the QQQ, similar thesis here, I'm going to maintain a bullish stance here on the overall market as long as you can maintain above your Monday's highs, which is going to be your 602.60s. If we come up, reject off this area, right, potentially a reversal is in play back down in towards your Monday's highs. But overall market fairly bullish, right? Also another possible scenario, break above your previous day high 607. We can see a continued push back towards the upside here as well. All right, so that's what I have for the SPY and Qs coming into today. As for AMD, right, keep an eye out on your previous all-time highs coming into today. If you can break above, we can see some continuation towards the upside. If we have another possible scenario that we have is Tesla. If we break above your Monday's highs, right, potential continuation up and towards your Friday's highs. If we reject, we're going to see this reversal back down and towards your previous day lows. As for NVIDIA, not too much to talk about on this one, kind of opening up inside the range. So I'll be a little bit more cautious on this ticker. Apple, key level that you're going to have is your Monday's highs, and then we can also mark out your previous day highs here as well. That's going to be the key levels moving forward. So just keep an eye on the reactions that we have off these levels. And then for Google, is actually one of my favorite tickers. We can keep an eye out on Google. Now it's just going to be the reaction that we have off of your 252, your last week's highs. We can also mark out your previous day highs here as well for this potential push back up and towards your all-time highs in this case, which is going to be that 256. As for some other tickers, we can keep an eye out on. Just keep an eye out on Oracle. This is one of my main watches. I do like this one. Have alerts set for the break above your, basically your previous day highs 310 on this ticker. And then other names that we do have, right, we have MU and TSM, which are just names that had, at least TSM had earnings that were reported, and then MU is actually breaking above your all-time highs here. So keep an eye out on the retest off of your 197. So at least today, right, keep an eye out on the SPY and Qs. That's really what's driving the overall market. So at least any tech name that you do play, most of the tech names are just kind of lagging behind comparatively speaking to the Q. So unless we have a higher time frame thesis like AMD, right, stick to, right, keeping an eye out on the SPY and Qs, or at least put more importance on the SPY and Qs. The only names that have higher time frame moves are AMD, Google. And at least on the other side, we have, right, MU break above your all-time highs, TSM, of course, and then potentially Oracle forming above your 310 here as well. So that's what I have coming into today. It's going to be a little bit shorter of a pre-market prep just because my throat's a little bit sore. So I don't want to lose my voice completely. But that is going to be it for me today. I do see a few questions. Let's see. When you have an NVIDIA that could bounce or reverse at key levels, how do you have conviction on that decide the key move or avoid days on such trades? Just because we're inside of a range, I primarily don't trade reversals. So I'll either, right, hold off, or I will not try and time it perfectly, so I'll give it more time. But in this case, right, the break and retest, as I mentioned, works best when we have continuation. So something, I'd much rather trade something like AMD, Google, something that has a trend comparatively to something like NVIDIA, where the trend's actually towards the downside, whereas the market is moving higher. So I'll be a little bit more cautious on that. Let's see. Yeah, it seems like that's about it. So yeah, I'm going to call it a day here. If you guys did enjoy that, appreciate if you guys drop a like. If you guys haven't joined the daily watches, that of course is in the description below. And yeah, that's really about it for me today. And I will see you guys all tomorrow. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Peace.